Hey folks, this is Kalani. The patch 8.3 PTR is getting so many updates, it's hard to keep up sometimes. I've said before that it looks like we're getting to the point where the PTR is a good reflection of what this patch is going to look like when it hits live servers, and the most recent build has filled in a lot of the gaps that still hadn't been fully explained. There's even more corrupted gear, including a reliable option relating to crafting. The process of removing corruption from an item is also ready for testing. The Heart of Azeroth has another update with a preview of what the infinite trait is going to look like, and we have a guaranteed way to apply sockets to any item of your choice as well. Let's have a closer look. The sockets thing probably got your attention, right? Let's start with that one then. The latest PTR build added a rather interesting item called a Gouged Eye of N'Zoth. Twist latent corruption into a socket on equipment that doesn't already have a socket. Does this sound like less RNG? Because from where I'm sitting, it sounds like less RNG. Surely the dev team couldn't have possibly meant to include such a thing in the RNG patch of the RNG expansion. Maybe they're just giving us an early taste of what Shadowlands is going to be like. But yes, guaranteed sockets. Providing, of course, you can pick up a Gouged Eye of N'Zoth. So where do these eyes come from? Is it random drops from the raid, super lucky rewards from the assault chests or caches? It's a lot simpler than that actually, you just buy them from a vendor. Alright, it's not any old vendor, it's Rathian. Hop down into the Chamber of the Heart and talk to Rathian. He has a few things he can sell you. The vessels that you will need to open up horrific visions, a new swarm amount that we'll talk about in a different video I'm sure, and the Gouged Eyes of N'Zoth. So the acquisition of this item isn't random, which is wonderful to see. I've always been a fan of currencies and vendors for certain areas of the game, and I think this is a great fit after looking over all the details. The currency being used is corrupted mementos. If you haven't been checking up on patch 8.3, you might not know what this is, or if you haven't been keeping up to date with the patch, your info might be a bit outdated. Corrupted mementos come from two main sources, minor visions and horrific visions. Minor visions aren't really going to give you that many, you get a handful from the daily vision quest, which is incredibly easy to complete, and then inside a minor vision you can get small amounts of corrupted mementos from certain mobs. It's by no means a quick farm, and you're on a very strict time limit thanks to your sanity bar. You can only enter a minor vision every so often too, so don't expect to get too many in the early days of the patch. Horrific visions, on the other hand, have the potential to net you thousands of corrupted mementos. In a horrific vision, you get corrupted mementos for every mob you kill. There's now a tracker on the right side of your screen, so you don't even have to loot the mobs anymore. The more you kill, the more mementos you get out of a vision. You also get corrupted mementos for each side objective you complete. There are 4 in each horrific vision, then the main objective will give you 500 mementos in the big chest at the end. If you can clear the entire vision and kill a bunch of mobs on your way through, you could earn maybe 1500 mementos with every run, more if you can stay alive and kill more mobs. That's going to be the largest issue for a lot of players, staying alive and staying sane. One of the main ways you can stay sane for longer is to upgrade your cloak. That's a time sink for sure, but there's another way, researching upgrades at the Titan Archive. The problem is that this costs corrupted mementos, but the impact this research will have on your longevity and visions mean this will probably be a priority. Each tier increases your power level in visions and let you stay in them for way longer. More time in a vision means more mementos, so here's what's probably going to happen. You'll farm up the mementos to unlock everything in the archive, and then after you're done with that, your extra mementos will go towards some of the gouged eyes that we were initially talking about. I haven't forgotten where we started, don't worry, this does all tie into getting some sockets on your gear. I don't think this socket item is really something you aim for, especially not right away. It is something you can farm for eventually, but honestly I think this was introduced to give us something to spend our excess mementos on after we've unlocked all of our research and everything else. Now, I have played a horrific vision with everything unlocked in a previous PTR build, and I can safely say that when you have everything in the archive unlocked, and when you have a fully upgraded legendary cloak, you can stay in horrific visions for a very long time. Plenty of time to knock out every objective, and hang around for a bit to kill plenty of mobs. Doing this with a full group is going to be very advantageous, and make farming mementos a piece of cake. The time invested probably won't be super worthwhile for a lot of players though. A single gouged eye costs 25,000 mementos. That's a lot of horrific visions, no matter how well you farm them. Right now we're looking to be locked into 3 or 4 horrific visions per week, thanks to the changes to how vessels are acquired. As I said before, this looks to have been added to soak up extra mementos rather than be something you actively farm for. But hey, if you do get to that 25,000 mementos mark and you have nothing else to spend them on, you can add a socket to your favourite piece of gear. It's all about the long haul for this item, I'm afraid, but at least we have a guaranteed source of sockets in patch 8.3, and corrupted mementos won't end up being worthless even after you upgrade everything in the archive. I also mentioned the Heart of Azeroth received an update. We have a few more notches to unlock after 8.3 goes live. You can see another slot for a Mine Essence to bring us up to a total of 4 essences active at once. That is going to unlock at 75 level on your heart, and it's going to increase our DPS or throughput by a significant amount, no doubt. And then there's also a special new node at the very end. Purity of the World Soul is our new infinite trait, and you can see how they want this to work. Increases corruption resistance by 1. I'm assuming that every level after 85 in your heart will put another point into this trait, hence, infinite trait, increasing your resistance by another 1. So now we have 2 sources of corruption resistance, the Heart of Azeroth infinite trait and the legendary cloak. Combine them together and by the end of this patch we can have a significant amount of resistance, to the point where we might be able to equip 2 or more pieces of corrupted gear without seeing any negative effects whatsoever. Grinding artifact power to unlock more traits in this infinite trait is going to be more important for different people than farming AP has been in the past. Right now you don't get too much for hitting 70. As long as you have 65, you get your 3 essences. This just changed the artifact power grind for the worse, though I hope they increase artifact knowledge at an appropriate rate to help everyone get to the end of this new Heart of Azeroth tree. Personally, I don't really like farming artifact power, so I guess I'll just be a little behind in my raid again. I know at least one other raider who will be there with me. Isn't that right, Keyshird? I'm looking forward to the Shadowlands expansion, where apparently this kind of open-ended grind will be a thing of the past. But before that, we have one last grind. If you want to min-max your character and you're happy to spend hours to farm the artifact power to do so, another source of corruption resistance just entered the game, and the artifact power grind just became endless in patch 8.3. And just in case you were thinking that you wouldn't need any corruption resistance because you didn't have a corrupted weapon in the previous PTR build, I have some good news for you. Or some bad news, I guess, if you don't want to farm up your corruption resistance. A handful of new corrupted weapons that dropped from the Nyalotha raid have been added in this PTR build as well. This fills in all of the gaps, I think. There's a 2-handed strength DPS sword, a dagger, a fist weapon, an agility polearm, and an intellect sword. The 2-handed strength sword gives your attacks a chance to trigger a beam of twilight devastation, dealing damage equal to 5% of your health to all enemies in front of you. Pretty similar to some of the other effects, though I imagine a beam might be harder to aim. You're definitely going to have to make sure you're facing the right way for a lot of these weapons. The rogues haven't been left behind after all. We have an agility dagger that gives your attacks a chance to spawn a tentacle which mind flays your target for shadow damage every second for 10 seconds. That sounds like quite a lot of shadow damage, especially if you are able to trigger this multiple times in quick succession, and if you can use 2 of them. The fist weapon is agility as well. Your attacks have a chance to lash your target with a living tentacle, dealing shadow damage and snaring them by 30% for 6 seconds. Not too bad, though not quite as interesting as some of the other effects in the pile. Still more interesting than the passive corruption effects in my opinion though. Most of those are pretty boring, but at least the weapon options are opening up a little bit. The agility polearm causes your damaging abilities to build the Echoing Void. Each time it builds, Echoing Void has a chance to collapse, dealing 1% of your health as shadow damage to all nearby enemies every 1 second, until no stacks remain. This one is super cool just for the flavour. I love how this one sounds. It might end up being a bit better than the agility staff, though that does mean the druids, survival hunters and brewmaster monks have a few choices for corrupted weapons now. And the last new corrupted weapon we have to look at is the new Intellect Sword. Your spells and abilities have a chance to strike a nearby enemy with an infinite star, dealing arcane damage and increasing their damage taken from your infinite stars by 25%, stacking up to 10 times. Depending on how much damage those stars deal, this could be absolutely insane. If your stars are firing at least. If your stars decide not to align and you don't get any procs at all, that would make for a sad caster indeed. With these new weapons added into the mix, I'm pretty sure everyone has access to a corrupted weapon at this point. Remember that each weapon does come with 25 corruption, so if you don't want to deal with all of the nasty side effects, you're going to have to get your hands on quite a bit of corruption resistance. The cloak will provide you with some, and the Heart of Azeroth Infinite trait will provide you with the rest. That's not the only new source of corrupted gear though. All of the high item level craftable gear from Professions in patch 8.3 will be corrupted as well, or at least most of it will. The engineering goggles won't be because they count as Azerite gear, but the other pieces from tailoring, leatherworking and blacksmithing that are 5 item levels below the raid gear should all become corrupted when you craft them. The corruption effect is also apparently going to be predetermined, so they've taken the RNG elements out of this type of corrupted gear as well. All of the crafted gear comes with 25 corruption and a tier 3 stat increase effect. The cloth gloves will come with 4% extra mastery, the cloth pants come with 4% extra haste, the leather pants come with 4% extra versatility, the leather boots have 4% extra haste, the mail pants have 4% extra mastery, the mail boots have 4% extra haste, the plate belts have 4% extra crit, and the plate pants are 4% extra haste. Hopefully I didn't mess any of that up. All of that might change by the time this goes live, but that's what we have to work with in the PTR thus far. All of these items still come with a free socket too, by the way, which could make this crafted gear some of the best gear in the game in patch 8.3. A good corrupted effect automatically at tier 3 with a guaranteed socket. That's a lot of power that you get almost for free if you're up to date with your crafting professions. Now you will need another quest item to actually craft this stuff. It's not going to be just as easy as find the materials. For patch 8.3 you'll need the Void Focus. It is fairly easy to get the first stage, just run a few minor visions. Both the recipe to craft a Void Focus and the 10 splinters you need for the craft can be found on monsters inside the Visions of Uldum or the Vale of Eternal Blossoms. One vision got me the recipe, another vision got me all 10 splinters. Craft the focus and take it to Rathian and it'll give you a quest to upgrade it. You can upgrade the focus by taking part in the Ny'alotha raid, from world bosses, from winning battlegrounds or arenas, and even from honourable kills. So it's not just the raid this time around. That should make things a lot easier for anyone who would rather PvP or for anyone who just doesn't raid. World bosses are available for everyone, so that's an easy win right there. Upgrade the focus to craft the next tier of gear and keep going until you can craft the 470 stuff. But if all of this talk of corrupted gear this and corruption resistance that just isn't your idea of fun, there's a solution for that as well. You can cleanse any corrupted item incredibly easily and cheaply, which is probably the most important part. The dev team said they wanted a cleansing option to be available to anyone who didn't want to take part in the corrupted experiment, so I would expect it to stay cheap even if you decide to cleanse every corrupted item you get your hands on. Simply run over to Mother in the Chamber of Heart, tell her about your nasty corrupted item that you want to cleanse, and she'll happily oblige. For 5 corrupted mementos. Note that while cleansing a corrupted item will remove the corruption stat, it will also remove the beneficial effect tied to the item being corrupted. You can't keep the good stuff without taking the bad stuff with it. It's all or nothing, I'm afraid, but if you want just a plain old weapon or piece of crafted gear, it's really easy to make that choice. You can always just craft another one later if you want the corrupted stuff back. So we now have an option to remove corruption from any affected gear if you can't handle the corruption value that comes with it. We know what comes next in the Heart of Azeroth system and how the infinite trait is going to work. Crafted gear might have just become the best source of gear for the patch. Everyone gets a corrupted weapon after all, and we also have a guaranteed, albeit incredibly expensive, source of sockets for our best loot. I'm not sure there are many large gaps left in the patch 8.3 public test builds at this point. It looks like everything major is on the PTR and being thoroughly tested. I know we aren't getting the patch until early next year, but I reckon early next year could be as early as the 3rd week of January. I guess we'll have to wait and see how the dev team wants to play things. But that's it for this video. What do you think of crafted gear always being corrupted? Is that a bit too much power for professions, or is it about time crafted gear was actually worth using again? How about the new corrupted weapons? Are you happy to be included in the lot, or do you think corruption just isn't worth the hassle? Leave all your thoughts in the comments section below. A big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. You can see their names floating by on screen. If you want to join these lovely guys and gals, you can find a link in the description below. Remember to leave a like just below the video before you leave. If you want to see more, make sure to subscribe. But apart from that, thanks for watching folks, good luck and have fun, and as always I will see you next time.